Salawat. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Taking one last look at you as you leave, I see fire. Now what do you perceive? Do you see hearts broken like our dreams, or our tent aflame and all the children screams? Gonna think of you as I run between tents ablaze. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. As you stand alone, you're looking left and right. Can I just ask you as you leave to fight? Since I was born, have you ever left my side? As you walk, you'll see my footsteps by your strides. Gonna scream aloud as your pure neck is hacked away. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Your tears tell about your broken heart. Your bowing head reveals your every scar. I know that you faced tribulation so hard, but the time has come for us to be apart. Gonna watch you walk as the sound of your steps fade away. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. If there's no one to prepare you for the war, you know Zainab will give her life for yours. Without any words, I'll kneel down on the floor, and with these hands I'll help you climb your horse. Gonna help you now. Who will help me after today? Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. As you walk away, it breaks my heart to see every few steps you turn to look at me. You are strong enough to handle any grief, but you're broken to leave your family. Gonna smile at you every time you turn to look my way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. I look for a sign while standing on a mound that you're safe with no enemies around. But my heart shakes and I fall to the ground. watching you lay and making not a sound. I'm gonna run to you to protect you on the burning plains. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. As I walk past your body tied in chains, I make this vow to you, oh my Hussein. I will stay strong and will bear through any pains. I may not live, but your name will remain. Gonna make you proud as I'm dragged away from where you lay. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Gonna think of you on that road every step of the way. Gonna see you in my dreams, see you every day. Salawat.
صلوات نبی. میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. سگراگز سے چونک اٹھی، بولی سر کو پیٹتی ہوئی، ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی. میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. دیکھا آج میں نے کیسا خواب، ریت پر پڑے ہیں کچھ گلاب، چن رہے ہیں جس کو وہ تراب، خون رو رہا ہے آفتاب. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. ایک طرف علم ہے خوں میں تر، جھک گئی ہے شاہ کی کمر، جا رہی ہے جس طرف نظر، بیبیاں کھڑی ہے ننگے سر. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. ہائے ہائے قاسم جوان، بین کر رہی ہے جس کی ماں، ہل گئے زمین و آسمان، توڑی جب دلہن نے چوڑیاں. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. ایک بچی سینہ پدر، ڈھونڈتی رہی ادھر ادھر، باپ سو رہا تھا خاک پر، جس کے تن سے کھچو جدا ہے سر. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. قید ہے رسول زادیاں، ہاتھ میں بڑی ہیں رسیاں، بے کجاوا ہے ہماریاں، خون رو رہا ہے سارے بان. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو. خواب یہ بڑا عجیب تھا، بادشاہ دین غریب تھا، کیا یہی میرا نصیب تھا، بے کفن میرا طبیب تھا. ہائے میری نیند اڑ گئی، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، میرے بابا خیریت سے ہو، मेरे बाबा खैरियत से हो, मेरे बाबा खैरियत से हो. सलवात नबी.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Just a few announcements to make here. Let me get my list out. First is, please, brothers and sisters, do put your shoes on the shelf. If there's no space on the shelf, there's no space, that's fine. But if there is space, please do put it on the shelf. Second is, anybody wishing to sponsor Tabarruk, there is a list on the ladies' side that you can sign up there, and you can add your name to that list. Third announcement is for the Iraq Humanitarian Medical Supplies and Fund. So if we can get that, perfect, thank you. So we are collecting for the Iraq Humanitarian Fund. We sent that out to the ISIA WhatsApp. It's also on our website. So anybody looking to donate, please do donate generously to support the orphans. You can sponsor orphans, you can sponsor widows, and send donations. There's some contact lists there right at the bottom of that poster, which is again on the website, jamaat.org. It's also in the ISIA WhatsApp. And the Muharram Fund, of course. So we are collecting donations from the Muharram Fund. So please do donate generously to the Muharram Fund. We are looking for 25,000, and we have just over 2,000 right now. Hopefully before the end of the night, we'll get some more. But we are at 25,000 right now, and inshallah, we're hoping to get to that number. So please do donate generously. Regarding the start time tomorrow is 8:15, so do please take note of that. Tomorrow we are starting at 8:15, and Sunday again we start at 8. As we get through later nights, if we find we need more time for Matam, we will bring the start time back further. So right now we have it at 8 o'clock, but we might bring it back to 7:45 depending on how much time we would like to have for Matam. So today is 8:15, tomorrow is 8:15 as well. And one last thing is, please, everybody, of course, move forward because we have a lot of people who are going to be coming. So fill up the front, leave the back empty for people to come. And kids, any kids who are sitting against the wall, if you could please move off the wall so elders can sit there. It gives them some support. So any kids on the wall, please do move off the wall so elders can sit there. Thank you. Now let's have 3 loud salawat for Shaykh Muhammad Ali Ismail. Allahumma salli ala.
شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. So far in our investigation of the qualities of the true servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have discussed 4 characteristics. And inshallah today we will continue our discussion and discuss 2 more qualities of the Ibadur Rahman, as presented to us in verses 63 to 76 of Surah Al-Furqan, which is chapter 25 of the Quran. And the 3 questions that I will seek to answer in this majlis are as follows. First of all, how much should we give in the way of Allah? Secondly, how can we make our givings have a divine color to them? And thirdly, what strategies can we employ in order to resist temptation? Inshallah, let's begin our discussion with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So with regard to the first question, how much should we give in the way of Allah? Well, for this, we will look at the very next verse in the set of verses that we have been discussing. This is verse number 67, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. So the Ibadur Rahman are those who, when they give, they don't do israf. They are not wasteful. But neither are they niggardly and tight-fisted and stingy. Rather, they keep moderation in their giving and they have the right balance. So this already gives us a lot of clues as to what we must be like when we give in the way of Allah and how much we should give in the way of Allah. Now, when often people talk about giving in the way of Allah, the first thing that comes to people's minds is that financial type of giving. So giving money, giving sadaqah, giving khums, giving to a particular fund. Well, that's all excellent and necessary. But when you have a verse that talks about giving in a very general manner, like this one, because the wording is very general, إِذَا أَنفَقُوا, it means when they give. It's not qualified in any way, giving for this or for that. It's just when they give, then we must take it to mean all types of giving. In fact, all blessings that we have are all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we must therefore give whatever we can in His way. So in Surah An-Nahl, verse number 53, we are told, وَمَا مِن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ وَمَا بِكُم بِالنِّعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever blessings that you have, it's all from God. So giving therefore covers not just financial giving, but giving of knowledge perhaps, giving of the fruits of one's experience. After a certain time, people will gain experience in a particular area. It's sharing that experience with others. Giving someone maybe some physical help, some time. Often people just require some time and they want to maybe speak to you and just let off some steam, share their problem, or in some other way you are giving time to them to resolve their issues. It might be energy, whatever the case might be. And therefore this in itself is a big area for us to develop in, because no one can now say that I don't have and therefore I can't give. Who can ever say that I don't have and therefore I can't give? At the very least, somebody has their entire existence, their life. And therefore, everyone can give something. It's not always to do with finances. Even if someone is not in a good financial position, they can give in other ways. As this verse shows, by putting it in a very generalized way without any restriction or qualification. Now, when we look at this, we see therefore that there is no particular amount that will apply to everyone. How much should we give in the way of Allah? Depends. Depends on the person's situation. Everyone's going to be different. Everyone has to abide by these general guidelines that are there in the verses. That the person must not be wasteful, neither must they be tight-fisted, but they must exercise moderation. Let's develop this further and get some practical ideas and guidelines from the blessed Quran, and of course those who are embodiments of the Quran, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So for this, let's turn now to a beautiful tradition from Imam Jafar Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. he illustrates it in such a fantastic way that it resonates with all people, young and old. So he actually does tafsir of this very same verse, verse number 67 of Surah Al-Furqan. And he bends down, he picks up a handful of small stones, and then he holds on to them. And he says that this is what is meant in Allah's book, referring to the same verse, by being tight-fisted. Right? Because the verse says, the Ibadur Rahman are neither tight-fisted nor wasteful. Then, second time, he bends down, picks up a handful of small stones, and then he just lets them all go. And he says, this is what he means by being wasteful. And then the third time he picks up a handful of small stones, he lets some of them go, but he holds on to others. And he says, this is what is meant by exercising moderation. A fantastic explanation and tafsir by a person who embodies the verse and all the verses of the Quran. So now, when we look at this, we can see therefore that it is a case of getting that balance right. Let me now point to the Ibadur Rahman. Like I've been saying in the previous nights, especially for those who weren't there previously, we have not only been looking at these verses and the spiritual qualities mentioned in them, but we've been looking at the true Ibadur Rahman who were on the plains of Karbala, and we've been seeing how they embodied and manifested and put into their lives the qualities and the teachings of the verses, so that we have these role models to look up to, use as an evaluation, and compare ourselves with. Where are we in the scale of Ibadur Rahman, and what must we do to get to that higher level? So the example I like to give is a very famous one. I'm sure people will have heard of this and they know it, but it's the points that I want to derive afterwards that are important. It's the famous incident mentioned in Surah Al-Insan, and it involves not just the Abdur Rahman that is the main hero of Karbala, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but also his beloved brother Imam Hassan alayhi salam and his holy parents, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'een. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So very briefly, the story and the incident is like this, that Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Imam Hussein alayhi salam became ill. So when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes to them and he sees them, he says to their blessed parents, Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Holy Lady Fatimatu Zahra alayhi salam, that it's good if you keep a vow for 3 days, right? Another, that they get better. So this is what they do, and it's also reported that their maidservant, Lady Fidda, also joined them in keeping this vow. Now, after a while, the blessed children, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, alayhim assalam, they get better, and so they now have to keep that vow for 3 days, right? The vow was they would fast for 3 consecutive days, all right? Just obviously breaking their fast at the time of iftar, but on 3 days. So now, on the first day, they're keeping their fast, and at the time of iftar, when they were just about to break their fast, and we can all relate to this time, at the time, when we're about to break our fast, how are we? Let's imagine how they must have been as well. Somebody knocks on the door. When they answer, it's a person who is needy, a miskeen. And that person asks for some charity. And so what do? They give their iftar to that needy person and they break their fast with water. The second night, again, because they had that vow, they had to keep a fast. They keep it all day. The time of iftar, they're about to break their fast. There's a knock. They answer it. And this time it's an orphan, also asking for some help. So they give their iftar for a second time running to that orphan and break their fast with water. The third night, a similar thing happens. This time it is a captive, right? I'll explain what is meant by captive, because often people wonder, how can a captive be there walking the streets of Medina, and how does it work? I'll explain in a moment. But they give their iftar to that captive, and they break their fast with water. Now, at that time, with regard to this captive, the most commonly held view is that because it was a new Islamic government, right? The Holy Prophet ﷺ, when he salamu alayha, had come to Medina and established the Islamic government, there were lots of polytheists and disbelievers who were taken captive. The Muslims were in control now. But what about those who weren't Muslims? And so the Prophet instructed certain Muslim families to look after the non-Muslims. So they would look after the non-Muslims, but it was a very tough economical time. And so sometimes the non-Muslims would go either with their Muslim carers and those who were looking after them to other people's houses asking for charity, asking for some help. Other times they would go by themselves. And so this is what is meant by captive, that it was one of those non-believers who was taken as a captive by the Muslims, but being looked after the Muslims. All right? So we have three people coming: the miskeen and the yatim, the orphan and the captive. Now, this act of giving was so sincere and so great in the eyes of Allah that sometimes people say a verse was revealed, verse number 8 of Surah Al-Insan. Others say a whole set of verses. Others say the whole chapter, Surah Al-Insan, was revealed. In any case, the key verse that I would like to focus is verse number 8. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. That they, these people, referring to the holy Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, give food despite needing it to the needy person, the orphan and the captive. Amazingly, that sincere act of giving in the way of Allah became part of the Quran. No, not just that. The incident didn't just become part of the Quran. You know what else became part of the Quran? The very next verse is actually their own speech. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ جَزَاءً وَلَا لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. Allahu Akbar. That we give for the sake of Allah, and we don't want anything from you. We don't want any recompense and reward, nor do we want any gratitude and thanks from you. So what has happened here? That act of giving was so sincere and great that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes their words part of the Quran. He quotes them and their speech becomes verses of the Quran. This is why they are the greatest Ibadur Rahman, that they embody the teachings of the Quran to such an extent that what they say and what the Quran says is one and the same thing. This is truly something that we can learn from. Now, the points that I would like to derive are as follows. First of all, these people that came to the door, were they known to the Ahlul Bayt? No, they weren't known. They were strangers. Who do we help? Do we only help those we know? Or do we help those who need it? It must be the latter, those who need it. Of course, we have a priority in terms of our duties to always help our relatives and those who are close to us first. But if we see people who are needy, we must help them, whether we know them or not. Secondly, were they people of status that perhaps they could have returned the favor? No, they were needy, orphans, captives. Let's evaluate ourselves. When we help people, is it because we expect a favor from them back? It should not be like that. We should help sincerely, not because we want something back. So these are the points that we need to derive from this. And it's a supreme example of giving in the way of Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, a question sometimes arises that the verse talks about moderation. How is it possible that they gave in the way of Allah all the iftar for 3 days? Why didn't they exercise moderation then? What is the answer? It's a good question. That if we are to exercise moderation, what does it mean? Exercising moderation in this verse means we are neither extravagant, wasteful, irresponsible, nor are we really tight-fisted that we don't give anything. So we must give in the way of Allah, but we must make sure that we are doing it in a responsible way. We are not going to harm ourselves or those we are responsible for financially. It's no good giving everything away, then we put ourselves in so much difficulty and those that we have to look after. But neither should we be in a situation that we can't give to those who genuinely need our help. So it's all about the balance. Now, with them, didn't they put themselves to extreme difficulty? Well, what's the answer here? First of all, the verse talks about israf. They weren't wasteful. They weren't exuberant. They did not go to an extent that goes against the verse at all. Secondly, who are we talking about here? We are talking about those who we just said a few moments ago, whose words become the ayat of the Quran. And therefore, they are on a different level. And they themselves know best when to give, what to give, who to give to. They have wisdom that not all of us, and certainly we don't have that level of wisdom. They are totally giving in line with Allah's will. So from that extent, there was absolutely nothing wrong with what they did. They know when best to give, what effect it will have, and the consequences of that. Let me illustrate it by this wonderful saying from Imam Sajjad sallallahu wa sallamu alayhi. He says it in such a beautiful way. You know, we are always trying to seek the right door to Allah, isn't it? Is it this door? Is it that door? We are always trying to seek the right path to God. Is it this path or that path? He says, Nahnu abwabullah. We are the doors to Allah. Wa nahnu siratul mustaqim. And we are the straight path. We, the Ahlul Bayt, are not looking for the door. We are not looking for the straight path. We are the doors to God. And we are the straight path. Therefore, if they are the doors to God, and if they are the straight path, whatever they do will get to God. Whatever path they take, takes them to God, isn't it? If they are the doors to God and the paths to God. So this illustrates and answers that question that people often have. Didn't what they do, wasn't it something a little bit too extreme? Yes, for us, that's not our duty to go to that level. Our duty is to exercise moderation according to what I said earlier. But then, inshallah, we work towards that higher and higher level. And inshallah, we will get to them by following the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So let's now move on to that second question, and that was, how can we give a divine hue, a divine color to our giving? We want to give, whether it's finances or our fruits of our experience or our time, our energy, our knowledge, whatever it might be. How can we give it a divine color? And for those of you who weren't there in that first majlis, I spoke about coloring our lives with the divine. And it's all from that verse, Sibghat Allah, wa man ahsanu min Allahi sibgha, the color of God. And who better to give color to our lives than God? right? So our actions can have a divine color, the color or the colorless color of God. In any case, how can we make our actions divine, godly? That's what it's talking about. In the Quran, because we are taking this Quran-centric approach to all of our points, the Quran tells us how we can do this. Look at this, and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So first of all, from that master par excellence of spirituality, Mawla Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salam alayhi. He says, Innal miskeen Rasulullah. It's an astonishing statement. The miskeen, right, the needy person is Rasulullah. Right? What does Rasulullah here mean? It simply means one who is sent by God. Right? The needy person is someone sent by God. And the one who rejects him, rejects God. The one who gives to him, gives to God. Now, what does this mean? It means that when we come across a needy person, that person has been sent by God to test us. And so, if we give, we are giving to God. We pass the test. If we don't give to that person, we don't give to God, and therefore we fail the test. So that's one thing. That needy person, so I'm talking about giving a divine color to our actions. I'll build on this slowly. So the first point is that the needy person, we should look at them as being sent by God as a test for us. We have something that they need. Are we going to give or not? That's the first thing. Secondly, who owns everything anyway? Everything that we have, like I said earlier, all blessings are from God. Whatever it might be. The Quran tells us about two types of ownership that Allah has. Allah has two types of ownership. And when you put the two together, it means He owns absolutely everything. Not just what we see around us and we know about, but the inner dimensions and the hidden things about everything. He refers to this as mulk and malakut. Mulk and malakut, you can tell they are from the same root. But what's the difference? So in Surah Al-Mulk, Tabarak alladhi biyadihil mulk, isn't it? At the beginning of Surah Al-Mulk. Blessed is he in whose hand is the mulk. Right? The mulk is the physical realm. All the things that we see around us and we can sense through our senses, the physical, material realm. Allah owns that. But a step further, He owns the malakut as well. What is the malakut? Well, we are told in Surah Yasin, for subhanalladhi biyadihi malakutu kulli shay, isn't it? That in His hands, glory be to Him, the one in whose hands is the malakut of everything. The sovereignty, the malakut is the spiritual dimension of everything. It's the hidden dimension. That is a dimension that only certain people may see. Now, let me illustrate it by this example. Because the mulk is dependent on the malakut. Whoever, if somebody has the malakut in their hands, they own the mulk automatically. So, it's like, take a bulb, right? You plant the bulb. What is that bulb? In gardening terms, a bulb contains all the nutrients required for that flower to grow. Okay? So like daffodils and tulips and hyacinths, right? You can tell I'm a fond gardener, right? So the bulb has all the nutrients it needs in order to produce that flower. Where do we put that bulb? We put it under the ground. Then all we see is that beautiful flower that grows from it, that daffodil, let's say. Now, that daffodil depends on what? It depends on the bulb. If that bulb wasn't there, it wouldn't grow so beautifully. Can we see the bulb? No, it's under the ground. All we see is that flower. We admire it and we can't see what is giving it source, what it depends on. This is the relationship of the mulk and malakut. The mulk is the flower. It's what we see around us. It's what we can sense. in the material world. But it is dependent on the malakut which we don't see. It's that bulb under the ground. But the bulb is totally the source of that flower. The flower depends on it. So this is God's ownership of everything. That's the second point. So the miskeen, the needy person, is sent by God. God owns absolutely everything. Not just that. When we give, who accepts that giving? Who accepts it? Look at what we are told in the Quran. In Surah Tawbah, verse 104, we are told that Allah ya'khudhu sadaqat. Allah accepts sadaqat. So now, if we put all this together, what do we get? The miskeen is Rasulullah, sent by God. Everything is owned by God. When we give, we should have the niyyah of qurbatan ilallah. We give it for the pleasure of God, to seek closeness to God. And who accepts it? God accepts it. Now, when we put it all together and we give with this type of thought, isn't our action going to be totally God-centric? Isn't it going to have the hue and color and tone of the divine? So let's now, inshallah, always give with this thought that, first of all, the person I'm giving to has been sent by God. Secondly, God owns everything anyway. Thirdly, my intention is godly. And fourthly, God receives what I give. Therefore, if I give with this type of giving, whatever it might be, finances, knowledge, fruits of your experience, time, energy, then our actions, our giving will have a divine color, and it will be the sibgha of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's now look at the final question for this evening, and that is, how can we resist temptation? Now, this is another quality of the Ibadur Rahman, or link to it, because in the very next verse, verse number 68 of Surah Al-Furqan, we are told, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَدْعُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ. The Ibadur Rahman are those who do not take another God apart from Allah as their deity, right? They don't worship any other God. They don't call on any other God or invoke any other. So this means they are entirely monotheistic. They only have Allah. Now, there are lots of things that can be said about Tawheed versus Shirk. But like I've been doing in all of these lectures, I've only been focusing on a few dimensions of each quality. The dimension I would like to focus on with regard to this attribute is worshipping a type of God, but this is actually our hawa, our desires, our carnal desires, right? أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخِذَ إِلَهًا hawa. Have you seen the one who takes his hawa, his desires, as his God? This is in Surah Jathiyah, verse number 23. So therefore, somebody can take their desires as a God. The Quran tells us, people take their desires and hawa as their gods. How does that work? It's because when they are following their desires, they are not following the commandments of God. It's as if they are doing shirk. It's as if they are worshipping their desires, not God. Why? Because they are submissive to who? God or to their desires? It's their desires. Where do they get their orders from? Is it God or their desires? It's their desires. Where do they get their direction from? Is it God or their desires? It's their desires. That's how they are taking their desires, their carnal desires, as God. Now, again, let's apply it to the Ibadur Rahman. This time, I would like to use an example from the Quran. And this is especially important for my younger brothers and sisters, for all of us, of course, but especially today, where there's so much temptation, sometimes real, but nowadays more and more and more online temptations, right? Online things that take us away from God, things that are created by the ibadu shaitan, not ibadullah, by the servants of shaitan. And we must not fall into these temptations. So what I'd like to do is present 4 strategies, practical things that we can all adopt, whether it's real temptations or online, in order to resist temptations. The example I'd like to give is that of Nabi Yusuf. In Surah Yusuf, verse number 23 and 24 and 25, we are told about how he resists temptations and the after effects of that. So, you all know the story that there's that lady, Zulaykha, or sometimes referred to as Zalikha. Sometimes it seems that Zalikha is a better pronunciation for it. Anyway, this lady has Nabi Yusuf in front of her. Nabi Yusuf, young, unmarried, extremely handsome. She herself is reported to have been extremely beautiful. They're in the inner chamber of the palace that Nabi Yusuf was in, and she locks all the doors. Now she calls Nabi Yusuf to her. So everything was ready. But look at how Nabi Yusuf employs these 4 strategies to avoid any type of temptation. And these are strategies for all of us to employ. How does he say no? Well, look at the things that he does. The Quran tells us, he says, قَالْ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. First thing, he seeks refuge in Allah. Isti'adha. Isti'adha is when we seek refuge in Allah, not just by saying, A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah. No, isti'adha is really moving away from that temptation. That's the first thing we do. We're sitting in front of the computer, or we see someone that our eyes are attracted to, but they shouldn't be, or we hear something, music, it could be a worldly thing, it could be food and drink that really is not right for us, either because it's haram or because we've already, become satiated, we become full. Why should we have more? It could be any temptation. So the first thing we should do is seek refuge in Allah, move away from it. So in verse number 25, what are we told he does? وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. He doesn't just stand there and say, A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah. We sometimes do that. But real isti'adha is moving away as fast as possible. So the verse tells us, they raced to the door, meaning he raced, he ran away, and of course she followed him. So what this tells us is that we must move away as quickly as possible from that evil temptation. Secondly, what does he say? He says, Innahu Rabbi. He is my Lord. Well, that in itself is strategy number 2. Why? We at that point should realize and think to ourselves, who has given me everything so far? It's my Lord, my Rabb. He says, He is my Lord. He has nourished me. He has provided for me. And He has looked after me so far. So why do I need this? He's going to carry on doing all of that. He's going to carry on looking after me. And indeed, that's what happens. Those of you who are familiar with the story, what happens at the end? After many years, that same Zalikha becomes a righteous person and he ends up marrying her. Halal way, haram way. Allah provided for him as He has always provided. So this is the second strategy, is that we acknowledge Allah as our Lord and He will provide for us. We trust in Him. Third strategy, what does He say? Ahsana mathwai. He has provided for me a good abode. So the third strategy is we should be grateful of everything that we have. Nabi Yusuf thought about everything that he has. Allah has provided for him this brilliant abode. He was in the well. He got rescued. Now he's in this amazing place. So, the lesson here is that if we acknowledge what we have and we are grateful for what we have, we won't be tempted for what we don't have. It's when we are ungrateful, we don't do shukr, that we start going after other things. Think about what we have. We have health, we have our possessions, our community. Most importantly, we have the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt. We have our iman. We have God. We have Ashura. We have Ramadan. We have all of these things. Why should we want other things that are not law for us? And fourthly and finally, he says, إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Indeed, the zalimun, the wrongdoers, are not prosperous. They will not succeed. What's the lesson there? Thinking of the akhirah. At that point of temptation, let's think of the akhirah. As I mentioned in the previous majlis, the Ibadur Rahman are fearful of hell. They know that there is hisab and kitab. There will be accounting. For every single wrong thing, there will be punishment if it's not forgiven beforehand. And for every good deed, there will be reward. So these are the 4 strategies, my brothers and sisters, that we should all adopt. Whenever we face any type of temptation, food and drink, bodily temptations, it could be something to do with some worldly position that we are striving for. It could be online stuff. It could be material things. Whatever the case might be, let's first of all make sure that we do isti'adha, true isti'adha by moving away, that we recognize and remember Allah is our Rabb, He will look after us. Thirdly, our blessings, and we should be grateful. And fourthly, we should remember the akhirah. Every wrong deed will be punished. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, as a summary, we asked ourselves these 3 questions. First of all, how much should we give in the way of Allah? Well, we should exercise moderation, not be extravagant, nor be so tight-fisted that we genuinely deprive those who need. But we should try and give as much as we can by doing it responsibly and still making sure that we perform our duties to those that we have to look after. Secondly, how can we give a divine color to our giving? Well, by always remembering when we give, in fact, when we do anything, it's all going to be, it has to be God-centric. So in the case of giving, the person who's needy has come from God. The thing that we are giving, the item we are giving, belongs to God. Our intention is all about doing it for the sake of God. And God Himself receives it. It's God, God, God. Making it God-centric, that's how it becomes a God sort of like colored action. And thirdly, how can we resist temptation? We do that by employing those strategies that Nabi Yusuf, that Abdur Rahman gave for us in those verses in Surah Yusuf, where he makes sure he does isti'adha genuinely, he recognizes God as his Lord, he counts his blessings and he's grateful for them, and he remembers the akhirah. Let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, first and foremost, protect our Imam and hasten his appearance. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Oh Allah, bring relief to all those facing difficulty around the world. Oh Allah, enable us to be your true ibad. Oh Allah, enable all of our giving to have a divine color. Oh Allah, enable us to give in a way that fulfills your wishes. And oh Allah, enable us to resist all types of temptation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Sallallahu alayka ya Yabna Rasulillah. On the night of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam addresses his companions and family members, and he says that I know of no companions better than these companions. and no family members better than my family members. And then he says to them that disperse using the blackness of the night. You don't have to stay. Go and leave me to deal with these people. Do you think any of them went? Of course not. They all responded by pledging their allegiance and their support to their master. And tonight we will salute and honor and remember two of these great companions, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn and Sa'id ibn Abdullah. First of all, look how they responded when Abu Abdullah says, you can go and use the blackness of the night to cover you so that no one sees you. First of all, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, he says that no way, even if I was to die and then brought back to life 1,000 times, but by doing that, I would prevent your killing, then I would be happy for that to happen. Sa'id ibn Abdullah, this very prominent, respectful person from Kufa, the one who helped Muslim ibn Aqil in Kufa. What does he say? He says that by Allah, even if I was to be killed and brought back to life and my body would be cut into pieces and strewn all over the place, and this would happen 70 times, I would not leave you before I died for you. Allahu Akbar. These are the companions that we remember this night. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn was not initially part of Abu Abdullah's camp. They met on the way, but he transformed and he became one of the Abdur Rahman, to the extent that Abu Abdullah says to him that take the right flank of my soldiers. He was the head of the right flank. On the left flank you had Habib ibn Madahir, and in the middle was Imam Hussein and his family, and he gave the standard to Hazrat Abbas. So now Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, in charge of the right flank, he puts his hand on the shoulder of Abu Abdullah. This was a signal to him that, oh my master, this is now my turn to go into battle and to sacrifice myself for you. He fights valiantly. He kills many of the enemy soldiers, but eventually Zuhair falls. Abu Abdullah says this phenomenal line to him. He says, by Allah, may He never keep you distant from us, O Zuhair. Now, it is reported by some that his wife Daylam actually sent her servant to go to the body of Zuhair. Zuhair's body was lying on the plains of Karbala. She said to her servant that go and give kafan to the body of my husband. So now the servant is going towards his master Zuhair. When he approaches on the way, he sees that there are all the shuhada without any shrouds. He sees Abu Abdullah's body cut into pieces, lying bare-bodied without a shroud. He sees Hazrat Abbas's body near the Euphrates without any arms, lying without a shroud. He sees Ali Akbar's body cut into pieces without a shroud. And he sees the trampled body of Qasim without a shroud. He feels embarrassed. How can he give kafan to Zuhair when all of these don't have kafan? He puts his head down. He goes back to Daylam, the wife of Zuhair. And he thinks that this Daylam is going to tell him off. He thinks that Daylam will be angry at him. You know what Daylam says to him? She says to him, well done for not giving my husband the shroud. Perhaps though I say mu'mineen, it's perhaps because she was thinking about the mother of Abu Abdullah. Perhaps she was thinking about Holy Lady Fatima Zahra. How would she face her on the day of judgment? That she gave kafan to her husband while her own son was lying bare-bodied on the plains of Karbala without any kafan. But now let's recall the sacrifices of that other great companion, Abdullah ibn Sa'id. Abdullah ibn Sa'id was one of those who stood in front of Abu Abdullah as he prayed his Zuhr prayers. as he performed Salatul Dhuhr, there was him and some others who acted as human shields so that Abu Abdullah would be able to perform his prayer. We can only imagine how it must pain in order to have an arrow shot into us. Just think about that for a moment. An arrow shot into your flesh. What pain must there be? It is reported that Sa'id ibn Abdullah, this human shield, standing in front of Abu Abdullah so that he can perform his Zuhr prayers, had 13 arrows fired into his body. But now his body becomes too weak. The pain overcomes him and he falls. But I'll leave you with this last line. When he falls, he only has one thing in his mind, and that is one question. As he falls, he turns to Abu Abdullah and he asks him, "Oh my master, have I fulfilled my obligation?" Allah la'natullah ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Matam Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواز. اس ماہ میں لوٹی گئی زہرا کی کمائی، تلوار محمد کے نواسے پہ چلائی. اس ماہ میں جبریل سے نوحہ یہ سنا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کا نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ سنت ہے محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواز. اس ماہ محرم نے قیامت یہ دکھائی، اس چاند نے صغرا کو خبر جا کے سنائی. ویران مدینہ ہے، بسی کرب و بلا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نوا. اس ماہ میں سادات نے دن کیسے گزارے، معصوم کو پانی نہ ملا نہر کنارے. کیا ظلم محمد کے گھرانے پہ سہا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نوا. جب چاند محرم کا نظر آتا ہے تم کو، سجتا ہے ازا خانہ تو یاد آتا ہے تم کو. اس چاند میں خون آل محمد کا بہا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نوا ہے. عاشور کا دن بھول نہ پائے گا زمانہ، لوٹا گیا اس روز محمد کا گھرانہ. اس روز سے دنیا میں بچھی فرش ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نواسے کا بپا ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ماہ محرم ہے، یہ ایام ازا ہے، ماتم یہ محمد کے نوا ہے. یا حسین، 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 یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے خون آنکھوں سے بہاتا ہے خون آنکھوں سے بہاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے چلتے چلتے جو سکینہ کہیں گر جاتی ہے چلتے چلتے جو سکینہ کہیں گر جاتی ہے خود کو نیزے سے گراتا ہے خود کو نیزے سے گراتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے جس طرف جاتا ہے بازار میں سر اکبر کا جس طرف جاتا ہے بازار میں سر اکبر کا اس طرف دیکھتا جاتا ہے اس طرف دیکھتا جاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف جب بھی داخل کسی بازار میں ہوتے ہیں حرم جب بھی داخل کسی بازار میں ہوتے ہیں حرم پہلا پتھر یہی کھاتا ہے پہلا پتھر یہی کھاتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے رات ہوتی ہے تو معصوم سی ایک بچی کو رات ہوتی ہے تو معصوم سی ایک بچی کو لوری نیزے سے سناتا ہے لوری نیزے سے سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے سورہ کہف سناتا ہے یہ سر کس کا ہے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
پیاسے پہ عجب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، 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 ایک لاش ابھی لایا ہے ایک لینے چلا ہے، پیاسے پہ عجب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، یہ ہرکا ہے وہ بھائی کا، یہ بیٹے کا لاشا، یہ ہرکا ہے وہ بھائی کا، یہ بیٹے کا لاشا، زہرا کا پسر گنجے شہیدہ میں پڑا ہے، زہرا کا پسر گنجے شہیدہ میں پڑا ہے، پیاسے پہ عجب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے جب وقت زینب تیری چادر کا خدا حافظ و ناصر، زینب تیری چادر کا خدا حافظ و ناصر، لشکر نا علم اور نا علم دار بچا ہے، لشکر نا علم اور نا علم دار بچا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت قیامت، یہ آخری ہدیہ تھا حسین ابن علی کا، یہ آخری ہدیہ تھا حسین ابن علی کا، یہ بچہ ابھی تیر سے جو مارا گیا ہے، یہ بچہ ابھی تیر سے جو مارا گیا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے جب وقت منہ ڈھانپ لو اماں کے نظر آئے نہ نیزے، منہ ڈھانپ لو اماں کے نظر آئے نہ نیزے، نیزوں سے یہی آنو محمد کی صدا ہے، نیزوں سے یہی آنو محمد کی صدا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت لیلا تیرے اکبر نے نہیں کھایا ہے نیزا، لیلا تیرے اکبر نے نہیں کھایا ہے نیزا، یہ نیزا دل سبت پیمبر میں لگا ہے، یہ نیزا دل سبت پیمبر میں لگا ہے، پیاسے پہ جب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے، پیاسے کا پڑا ہے، ماں جھولا جھلاتی ہے خیالوں میں ابھی تک، ماں جھولا جھلاتی ہے خیالوں میں ابھی تک، اب جھولنے والا نہیں باقی یہ پتہ ہے، یہ میں پڑا ہے پیاسے بے عجب وقت قیامت کا پڑا ہے
پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں 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 پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے او زہرا کی طرح ٹوٹی ہے قاسم کی پسلیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں ٹکڑے پھکارے دشت میں لبیک یا حسین ٹکڑے پھکارے دشت میں لبیک یا حسین آ کے کہا جو مولا نے قاسم ہو تم کہاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا کہتی پامال جیتے جی جو ہوا ہے اسے سلام پامال جیتے جی جو ہوا ہے اسے سلام رو کے لہو یہ کہتے ہیں خود صاحب زمان پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی پامال لاشا دیکھ کے آ جاؤ میرے بھائی تلک بولے یہ حسن آ جاؤ میرے بھائی تلک بولے یہ حسن قاسم نہ لو حسین کی غربت کا امتحان پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا پامال لاشا دیکھ کے یہ کہے کہ کچھ نشانوں کو شہ چومنے لگے یہ کہے کہ کچھ نشانوں کو شہ چومنے لگے عباس دیکھو رگری ہے قاسم نے ایریاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبی پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں پامال لاشا دیکھ کے
پامال لاشا دیکھ کے ٹکڑے اٹھانے لاش کے سرور کے ساتھ ساتھ، ٹکڑے اٹھانے لاش کے سرور کے ساتھ ساتھ، زہرا گئی ہے دشت میں جانے کہاں کہاں، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا کہتی ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے، پامال ہونا لاش چچا کی یہ سوچ کے، پامال ہونا لاش چچا کی یہ سوچ کے، لپٹا ہوا سموں سے ہے پرواہ کا نوجوان، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے، مادر کرے گی کس طرح دیدار آخری، مادر کرے گی کس طرح دیدار آخری، آئے سمو کے چاند سے چہرے پہ ہے نشان، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے کہتی ہیں بیبیاں، پامال لاشا دیکھ کے، او زہرا کی طرح ٹوٹی ہیں قاسم کی پسلیاں، یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، وہ عابد بیمار تھا، وہ عابد تھا، چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا، اور شام کا بازار تھا، اور تھا، اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیا مولا حکیمام، یا حسین مولا حکیمام، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی، سینے پہ وہ شاخ پھلی، جس کی ابابن میں جلی، جس کی منہ پر تماچوں کے نشان، مولا حکیمام مولا حکیمام، یا حسین 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 یا حسین۔ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات۔ السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته۔ السلام عليك يا مولى وابن مولى، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كابة الإيمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وأينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Brothers and sisters, just a reminder, there is going to be Jamaat Salat today. So there's the Barak. Stick around for Salat, inshallah. We'll start at Maghrib.